Well, researchers at the University of London concluded that a substantial majority of individuals believe themselves to be morally superior to the average person. They wrote that most people believe they are just, virtuous, and moral, and everyone else is less so. Additionally, 93% of you believe you are above average drivers. You are not. Where's the humility, right? Where's the humility when we have this moral superiority? I have a story for you. I was coming to church on a Saturday, my whole family in the car, and I was to give the welcome at one of First Company's theater productions. And we were running just a little late, and so I was driving just a little fast down Nevada. And we came upon in the line of traffic to that stoplight that sits on Nevada by Colorado College. And the light was green. What does green mean? Well, someone was sitting there letting every student just walk across. And so I gently tapped on my horn, or maybe I laid on my horn quite aggressively, because I was right. Don't stop. You have the green. We continued on our way to First United Methodist, where that person proceeded to turn into the parking lot to go to the play. And I made the humble choice to drive around the block. I wasn't humble, and I was also wrong. Who has the right of way at all times? Pedestrians. I was wrong. But I knew I was right, and I was not humble about it. A Pew Research Center survey found that a growing number of Republicans and Democrats view members of the other party as immoral, dishonest, and closed-minded. This survey, conducted from 2016 to 2022, found that the negative judgment increased 90% over that time frame. The reality is that no matter how much we say it is not our place to judge, we are judging one another. I want you to imagine a conflict with someone. It can be your neighbor whose yard is filled with political signs that you disagree with. It could be the other neighbor who really has to comment on your yard and its makeup every time you see them. It could be a coworker who doesn't really pull their share of the work but feels the need to complain all the time about everybody else. It could be that uncle who comes to Thanksgiving with his bigoted comments. Whatever the conflict is you're imagining, you have had it. You can't stand it anymore, and you are coming in hot. You've been playing this conversation out 20 times. You know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to show them you're right and they're wrong. You throw all your arguments and your emotions at them, and their response is to agree with you. They are an idiot. Their response is not to get defensive. Their response is not to push back, and humility is suddenly thrown in your face. The thing about humility is it absorbs instead of pushes back. And when hostility meets humility, almost anything can be resolved. Humility is the ability to control our need to win. And if politics involves comparing and ranking and winning, then humility has to eliminate in us that competitive spirit. Theologian Richard Rohr calls this our ego. When the truth is put in your face, do you acknowledge that your facts may be wrong, or do you double down and triple down on your truth? Because our ego does not allow us to be wrong. Peter is writing to people living in Galatia, Cappadocia, and what is now Turkey. And the focus for him is on the audience, but it's not so much the geography on the audience, but what is happening in that geography. The Christians he's writing to are not residents of the land. Those people are called the Lydonians. And they have their own language. They have their own Greek religion. They have their own pagan mythology. They have their own art. And these Christians have moved in, and they're causing conflict and dispute and discord by their very presence. And you can imagine in our country hundreds of examples where this has played out over the last 2 centuries. I think about Harlem in the 20th century giving way to African American ownership. I think about Chicago and the transition of land to become Chinatown. I think about the building of a mosque just about anywhere. But locally, I think it's the building of an amphitheater in a subdivision in North Colorado Springs that might be giving some drama and conflict. And boy, is there drama around that. Paul is telling these Christians that humility matters in their relationships. And it matters with those who are different politically, socially, theologically, ethnically. Paul speaks to clothe yourself with humility in your dealings with one another. Now, I love that it is Peter who is telling the Christians to be humble. Because the only way he can say that is he has the experience of becoming humble. Let's be honest, Peter did not start out humble. This is the arrogant disciple who thought he could walk on water. This is Peter who got into a fight with Paul at the Jerusalem council because each of them said they were right and the other was wrong. This is Peter, the one who, when the crow cried, could not acknowledge he denied Jesus. Peter found humility. And he found humility in a society of its day, in this Greco-Roman world, that didn't appreciate humility. Humility was a detested trait. It was viewed as a sign of weakness or lowliness or meekness or subservient. And I don't know how much different our world is today when we talk about being humble. I think humility is really just about serving others. I think the humility that we seek is to take a step back from ourselves and look at the other in front of us. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying humility means we're doormats. Humility is not self-deprecating. Humility does not devalue. Humility checks our ego to bring the other closer. But how do we get from this arguing about what is true to living in the tension of this purple zone? How do we get beyond the drama of this political season? Well, we get to the other side by letting go of our need to be right. If we are choosing rightness, then we are letting go of our relationships. If we are choosing competition and power and ego, then we are letting go of humility. The ego believes being right is the key to survival, and so we have to get out of our ego. If humility is the opposite of ego, then the opposite of rightness is curiosity. We build relationships and we change the conversation by being curious about the other. I want you to imagine a line. It's a simple black line. And the concept here is you're either above the line or you are below the line. And the line is a representation of our ability to step away from our ego and recognize that we are stuck being right. If you're below the line, you're closed and you're defensive and you're committed to being right. And if you're above the line, then you're open and you're curious and you're committed to learning and growing. Now, a truth about the line, we're all going to be below it at times because our ego has power over us. Ego has a role that pushes us below the line. And the gift from God is curiosity, which allows us to avoid the drama and avoid the competition and avoid the judgment and inquire about the person who is so different from us. In mid-2000, in the middle of the pandemic, a TV show came out called Ted Lasso. And the show follows Ted, an American college football coach, who's hired to coach an English soccer team, which the team's owner secretly hopes will fail. Instead, Ted's leadership leads to an entirely different outcome because Ted realizes
Mate, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck. You know, Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions, you know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 till I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
Skin on what it means to be curious. It's the invitation to wonder about someone, not to immediately reject someone. As we head into the coming weeks, if you are not already overwhelmed by the acrimony and arguments about what is true in our country and our political dialogue, you will be. That's just where we are. The question is, do we believe that we all, no matter what perspective you bring to the table, we all want this country to move forward, to be good, to be hopeful? We all want that. And if that's our starting point, then we get to be curious about what happens next. We need the humility of Peter. We need that humility that can transform our ego into something different. We need a humility that doesn't just speak, but puts skin on getting curious about everyone else.